Welcome to MLB Live Before Lock. I'm your host, Neil Orfield. You can find me on Twitter at PlayerQDFS. I'm joined today for the first time ever. We've done a show together by Gundacker, who can be found on Twitter at Gundacker. This show is sponsored by Oddsshopper, which gives you the edge you need betting player props and game lines across all sports. Give us a like and subscribe so you can keep up with all of our shows, DFS offers, giveaways, and much more while you're coming in. Once you subscribe, hit that notification button to get alerts when our shows go live. Be sure to also check out today's free premium tools and data, which are MLB player projections and MLB ownership projections. We'll also be hosting an NBA Finals watch along for game one, not game one. This will be game 3 at 9 p.m. Eastern. Join Greg and Eric as they use playback to live stream the game and provide their always insightful commentary. Click the link in the video description below for more details on how to join in on the fun. Sorry to laugh at that. They are always insightful. I hadn't read that part yet. Gundacker, how are you doing? I'm excited to do our first show together. Sorry to have some technical difficulties and get started a little bit late, but we've got 10 games to cover. Do you have an overview that you want to give of this slate before we start going in game by game?
Yeah, it looks like more weather, man, all week. Some weeks it gets like this, and you think you lean one way and then pitchers get scratched and then they come back, and games you don't expect to get postponed play, and the games so hopefully tonight will be a little less painful, but it looks like we are still dealing with some weather this week.
How frustrating was that with Scuba yesterday?
Oh man, it was rough. I mean, luckily, like, he didn't have like when he gave a couple runs early, I was like, okay. Because sometimes when a pitcher warms up, then you sit him down and then mentally he checks out. And then, never mind, you're back in. So I could understand, there's a little unquantifiable effect there. But I had a lot of strikeout props entered. And it was just going to, void that and come back. And then they, luckily for me, they came back to play. So I didn't lose out too much. But I missed out a lot on the DFS exposure. And I had to quickly shift into a lot of like Rodon and Kyle Wright and stuff like that. And I just, I ended up with way more than I wanted to.
Turns out we should have switched off onto Verlander. He had himself a game yesterday.
Yeah.
I had a lot of Rodon as well.
Yeah. I don't know. I had a little Verlander, but not enough. Not enough.
Yeah, me neither. All right, well, we've got 10 games to cover here. I guess we can get into the weather as we get to the games that have issues. Let's start by talking about the Cubs at the Orioles. We've got Marcus Stroman on the mound for the Cubs, Jordan Lyles on the mound for Baltimore. The Cubs have a 4.5 run implied total, Orioles at 4.0 run implied total. Let's start with Stroman. Do you have any interest in Stroman in a pretty good matchup against the Orioles?
Yeah, slight interest just because the Orioles can, accidentally give you a decent game. But generally speaking, I'm not that enthralled with Stroman long term. So it's going to be like back end of like a 150. I wouldn't have more than 5-6%. 4.81 expected ERA. K percentage at 22 is like really, really middling, but the 1-2-3 whip, just not what you want. But it's just like I'm looking for, average results at that price point, 6,900. If I get 14, 15 DK points, I'll take it as an SP2 spot. But it is one of those Scumdacker spots where I just got to play both sides, and hopefully I'm above the right side of the range of outcomes.
Yeah, and if you get to 5 or 6%, you're going to be well above the field. The field on DraftKings only getting to 1.2%. Currently is our projection for Stroman's ownership. So I think that's a reasonable amount to get to. He's got a 9% chance of being a top 2 pitcher on the board, a 15.1% chance of being a top 2 value on the board. So some good numbers in the top pitchers tool. But yeah, his numbers overall aren't too incredible, pretty mid-lean to slightly bad overall. And then maybe the matchup with Baltimore kind of makes up for it. So you say that it's a both sides are for you. How much interest do you have in the Orioles on the other side of it?
I mean, this is one of the, I call it scumdackering, where I just take the back end of pitcher. And this is one of those spots where we're getting positive leverage on both sides, right? So and because the numbers are so slim, I can just not have to give up too much equity. So I probably, maybe 5% of each and take it to the bank. And if we have to tweak it later, but I think 5% of each is a good little starting point for me.
Okay. Yep. That sounds like a good amount to me. Baltimore also coming in at only 1% projected ownership on Baltimore stack. So yeah, it seems like a pretty a spot that you can attack. Getting to 5%, you're 5x the field, and it seems like a reasonable spot to be 5x the field in a matchup with Marcus Stroman. Baltimore has some dangerous bats in the lineup, so I think that makes some sense. What about the other side of the game? Do you have any interest in playing Jordan Lyles? If you didn't like Marcus Stroman's 22.7% strikeout rate, how much interest do you have in Jordan Lyles' 19.9% strikeout rate against the Cubs?
Yeah, I have no interest here. I'm going to sit this one out. And I'm not, we're not enthralled with Stroman's K rate. But at least I know he can ground ball his way into a solid game. And Jordan Lyle, I'm just seeing red all across the board on any metric I really put some value in. The 5+ expected ERA, the 1.5 WHIP. So I'm gonna sit that one out and hope that on this size slate, Jordan Lyles isn't the nuts. And I think there's a good chance he's not.
Yeah, I mean, he looks okay in the top pitchers. I mean, he looks pretty good. He's coming in at 2.8% projected ownership, 7.2% chance of being a top 2 pitcher, and a 20.6% chance of being a top 2 value pitcher, which is often what you see with the really cheap pitchers. But I don't know that he really has the upside to get you there. So I think it makes some sense to kind of fade Jordan Lyles. I'll take it if I get there. If Fantasy Cruncher gives me some Jordan Lyles, I'll take it. But I don't think I'm going to go out of my way to get Jordan Lyles in this matchup with the Cubs. He just doesn't seem to have the upside that you need there. Is this another Scumdacker spot for you? Are you going to be going to? I guess it's not because you have no interest in Jordan Lyles. But how about the Cubbies on the other side? Are you going to be playing any Cubbies?
Yeah. I expected the Cubs to come in a little higher owned than what they're at now after yesterday. But yeah, I think I'd be there. I think they're slightly over owned based on our top stack tool, but sub 10% makes a lot of sense. And if I'm going to be all out on a pitcher, there's a reason for that. So I'm gonna definitely invest in these Cubs here. I currently had Cubs at 12%, and we got them at 7-8% owned. So I'm slightly above the field here. This team is 101 WRC plus, so they're finally above average by hook or by crook. And guys like Chris Morel and leading off today, he projects well in my power models. Wilson Contreras, Ian Happ, Frank Swindell, and Patrick Wisdom 1 through 5. I really like a lot, and they all have pop upside. So there's some stacks on the board where you wonder if all 5 guys in a or 5 guys in a lineup give that home run potential. I feel like we kind of get that here. Lyles does have a knack for keeping the ball in the yard, especially against righties this year, and maybe that's a product of that left field wall. But if he's still going to give a big chance at contact here, like a guy like Patrick Wisdom, who we know will have a 16+% barrel rate, but his big Achilles heel is that 38% K rate to righties. Well, if Jordan Lyles is only going to strike you out 18-19% of the time, I kind of like to take my chances of him putting the ball in play, and I'm getting good numbers there. So I'm gonna take I'm definitely gonna be invested in the Cubs here, and I'm at 12%.
All right. So, and yeah, they look pretty fine in the tools. As you said, they're coming in about 8% projected ownership with a 7% chance of being the top stack, but then also an 11.4% chance of being the top point per dollar stack. So I think it makes a lot of sense to go to the Cubbies here. All right. So in this game, sounds like you're interested in the Cubs first, followed by maybe the Orioles and then Stroman, and then no real interest in Lyles. Is that about it? Anything else you want to say about this game?
No, I think Orioles stack. I maybe undersold them. I like them maybe more than time I spent on them. But Stroman is the only pitcher. I'll get to some, and if it fell under 3%, I'm not going to lose sleep tonight.
Okay. Yep. Makes sense to me. All right, well, then we'll move on to Rangers at Guardians. The Rangers have a 3.3 run implied total, Guardians 4.1. We've got Dane Dunning on the mound for the Rangers, Connor Pilkington on the mound for Cleveland. Man, I hadn't really looked closely at Connor Pilkington's numbers before today, but 29.5% strikeout rate and then a 2 WHIP. Those are those don't line up for me. But let's start with Dane Dunning before we get there. How much interest do you have in Dane Dunning today going up against the Guardians?
You don't have Shane Bieber? It's not Bieber?
Oh, is it Bieber? That's
everything I see shows Bieber. That would definitely be a big difference.
That would be a big difference. That is not who I had in the run sheet. So let me double check those numbers, because yes, that would make a little bit. Yeah, it is Bieber today. So I guess I did not update that part of the run sheet. Yeah, that's going to make a pretty big difference. All right.
Yeah, you're good. No, yeah.
Let's start with Dane Dunning. Either way, I'll add.
Dunning has been a little less.
I got it, Neil. Right. You're good.
All right. Good.
Dunning's been a little less. I guess productive on the road, but it's not like he's horrendous. I do like the 56% ground ball rate, the almost 11% swing and strike rate, 24% K rate. The problem here is this Guardians lineup, only Andres Gimenez and Austin Hedges have strikeout rate worth even mentioning. The rest of this team is pretty doggone scrappy. So I think if you're rostering Dunning, you're hoping he eats 5 or 6 innings, maybe falls into a little less than a strikeout per inning. And I just don't like the upside here. And on top of that, this is one of those games that is going to be attached to some weather concerns. So I think I'm just going to be all the way out on Dunning. I think I can easily justify it when you start at the meditating on the decision for Shane Bieber, though. But yeah, I don't think I'm going to be that enthralled with Dunning just based on matchup and potential weather.
All right, yeah, that makes sense. When you add in the weather factor, Dane Dunning, I had some interest there at 6,700, but yeah, it's a tough matchup. The weather takes me off him a little bit, but 6,700 for his 24% strikeout rate, I mean, that's not too bad. So I could see getting some Dane Dunning, but I also think that's a totally reasonable approach, totally to fade him completely. Speaking of those scrappy Guardians, do you think you're going to be getting there at all?
So Guardians are a team I never fall into like full 5-man stacks. I usually grab Jose Ramirez and try to hold hands with like 1 or 2 guys around him. And I think in this case, I might adopt that same strategy, and Josh Naylor, Oscar Gonzalez would be the kind of the 2 candidates I put in. So they might be a sub stack I target, but I don't know that I'm going to fall into a full-fledged 5-man rotation of them.
Okay, that makes sense to me. So all right. No full stacks there, but maybe a secondary stack or some one-offs. All right, so we've got Shane Bieber on the other side. Much better than Connor Pilkington. Do you have some interest there in some Shane Bieber going up against the Rangers here?
So again, there is some pretty notable weather concerns. So everything that everything we talk about for Bieber, we have to keep an asterisk next to his name. But as far as just a solid pitcher, I think he has a solid range of outcomes to put up a positive game worth having. We've got 4 encouraging games in a row where he's gone 6, 7, 8 innings. The pitch count, touching 500, and then in 2 of his last 3 games, double-digit strikeouts. Baltimore, Detroit, strength of schedule was on his side here, but we know historically he can be a talented pitcher. The main thing we've been watching with Bieber is his fastball velocity, but sometimes pitchers just learn, hey, this is what I got now, and this is how I'm going to pitch. The metrics are not what they used to be, but a 1.15 whip, a 25% K rate, that dog will still hunt, even if it's not a 33-40% K rate. So I do have interest in him, but it is pretty weather contingent. And yeah, 9,600, I think he's got a real chance at 20 plus fantasy points. And there's some decent strikeout potential in this Rangers lineup. Garver, Adolis Garcia, Nate Lowe, Ezekiel Duran, and Eli White all give me pretty strong strikeout chances here against this matchup. So even though his mama don't like me, and she likes everyone, I'll play some Shane Bieber if the weather unlocks for me.
Yeah, it's such a tough spot because you clearly want him if he's going to be playing his full workload, but the weather concerns is it's a real threat there, as everybody in chat has pointed that out, that it is a real threat. So and as Andrew Jensen just pointed out, that playing pitchers in bad weather or random scratch spots has been paying off. That's true. We've been seeing over and over these pitchers. We just saw Hunter Green the other day. I faded him completely. I was going to get a ton, and then I decided to fade him, and he puts up 40 DraftKings points. Obviously, that we can't really that's not a predictive stat how these pitchers have been doing in these stats, but it has been paying off. So I would be a little bit scared to fade Shane Bieber in this matchup with the Rangers. I guess it's all about risk tolerance, right? I mean, you want to play him if you think he's going to play, and obviously you don't if he's not going to be playing a full game. Yeah,
and like you said, you can't predict it, but hey man, if it rains after they call it after 6 innings, you steal a CGSO. It's like the cheesiest extra points ever, but you might get lucky and the risk might pay off. But definitely keep a close eye on that one. It sounds like what we don't want to see is a delayed start.
Yep, then we're at risk of a postponement. All right, so how much do you have any interest at all in Texas today in the Rangers against Shane Bieber?
No, not really. I'm not getting massive power numbers here. Again, like we said, maybe the rain makes this game sloppy, wet, short hook on the pitcher, and we start playing that range of outcome. But and I do think Semion's heating up. He's looking a whole lot better than the season start. Seager, Mitch Garver, Dallas Garcia. I think just in a vacuum, we're just banking on talent here. I think 1 through 4 really has a strong case to be involved in a player pool. I don't know that I'll dedicate 5-mans unless unless weather really unlocks it. But I think it could be a decent sub stack, but I would keep it really, really responsible with maybe a 5% cap on it.
Okay. I like that. I like that thought that you had, that maybe they actually benefit from bad weather because we could knock out Shane Bieber early, and then they're in a bullpen game instead of facing Shane Bieber. That's a really interesting thought there. I think that does make them a little bit more playable here.
Yeah.
Did you see we got somebody in chat called Your Mom who wants to tell you that she's proud of you for being so successful in DFS. Has Your Mom been in chat before? Is this a new account here?
I don't know.
It's a tribute to you, so I assume it's only on your shows.
No, I don't, unless they changed their name. I don't know.
All right. Anything else you want to say about Rangers at Guardians before we move on?
No, just weather.
All right. Well, then before we move on to the next game, let me tell you about the Osmo Plus Platinum Pass. You can get access to all the great Osmo Plus tools and content for nearly every DFS sport out there with an Osmo Plus Platinum Pass. This includes full access to all the premium content and tools on Osmo.com, including player projections, ownership projections, lineup builder, our premium Discord channel, and much more. Now, if you're a new user of Osmo Plus Platinum, then you can save 50% on your first month of Osmo Plus Platinum. All you have to do is click the link in the video description below to activate this offer, or you can head to our join page and use promo code MLB Live, all caps, one word, that's MLB Live, for 50% off your first month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. Again, this is for new users only. Of course, if you're only interested in playing MLB DFS, then you can sign up now for an Awesemo Plus MLB package for as low as $18.95 weekly. Please note that Fantasy Cruncher is an add-on and is not included in our base packages, but can easily be added at checkout. Stop guessing, start winning. Join Osmo Plus today. All right, let's move on to the Cardinals at the Rays. We've got Packy Naughton on the mound for the Cardinals, going up against Corey Kluber for the Rays. Cardinals have a 3.3 run implied total. Rays have a 4.2 run implied total. Let's start with Packy Naughton. Any interest there?
Yeah, so no, Naughton looks like he's just going to be an opener and then hand the ball over to Zach Thompson. And I don't know that we can bank on, enough longevity from either guys to really kind of get there. If you thought 4K for SB2 out of Zach Thompson was something you could steal 4 or 5 innings, and he would still be win eligible, but he wouldn't be, anything else if they were on the right side of the scoreboard. Maybe a 10 or 15 fantasy points out of Thompson, but that's getting really cute, putting some makeup on there. For the most part, I think I'm gonna sit that out on the opener long reliever side of it.
All right. So what about the other sides? We got, it sounds like kind of a bullpen game. Nobody's gonna be pitching too many innings. Are you gonna be playing any Rays here going up against the Cardinals?
Yeah, so Thompson and Naughton are both lefties, and sometimes you see, like, on purpose the opener, be a different arm pitcher than the long reliever just to mess with the other manager. But that's not the case here. So the Rays do get to put out the lineup that they would like against left-handed pitching. So I think it makes sense to get invested in a little bit of the Rays. This is really not a fun lineup to attack. They're dead even when it comes to, WRC plus versus the world here. And it's not a plus pitcher spark or anything like that. And there's still no Wander Franco, but guys like Randy Arozarena, Yandy Diaz, maybe even a good value bat, and Harold Ramirez batting second. He's 27 on FanDuel, 24 on DK. There's a chip in a chair for those guys to maybe get you some fantasy points and some salary relief here. But I don't have any high expectations, but I do have some sub stacks of Rays involved in my script here. I would have really liked to seen Zunino in the mix here just to have some power hope. I've got just a Rosarena with like a 200 ISO since the beginning of last year against lefty. So that's not that encouraging, but generally there is a line of positive WRC plus against lefties for these hitters. So I'll be there on the substacks, but I'm not going to have any super high hopes.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense to me. And they are looking a little bit over-owned as primary stacks, coming in at 7.8% projected ownership with a 3.4% chance of being a top stack, 6.9% chance of being a top value stack. So they are one of our worst teams in terms of leverage versus ownership. So I think it makes sense to just go there, as one-offs or in your secondary stacks, but maybe not focus there as your primary stack. What about the other side of this game? We've got Corey Kluber on the mound for the Rays, 22.3% strikeout rate this year. That's decent, pretty middling. How much interest do you have in Corey Kluber going up against the Cards here?
A little bit, just kind of supplementary tertiary shares here. I'm not going to be, hanging my night on him, but we have him at an 8% chance of being a top pitcher with just, 4%, half that ownership. So we are getting positive leverage. Like you said, we're in a positive park. The Cardinals are typically righty heavy, but today half their lineup or 4 bats are coming in from the left side of the batter's box. So they do switch around a little bit. And I do think there's a positive enough range of outcome for Kluber to be a positive play at 8,400 to get some shares of him. I generally don't target the Cardinals for strikeout spots, but Nolan Gorman, Tyler O'Neill's back for him, Juan Yepez and Lars Nootbaar, they can give you 1 in 4 to 1 in 5 strikeout potential here. And Corey Kluber can keep the ball on the ground. This park might help him enough to make him viable. So I think the ownership's low enough that, yeah, I'll be there and I'll probably just match our top stack percentage and still be double the field.
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, 3.8% projected ownership with an 8.3% chance of being a top 2 pitcher on the board. I think that makes totally sense. Just double the field and you're getting some leverage there. So yeah, Kluber looks okay. What about the other side of that? Is this a Slumdacker spot for you? You going to be playing any cards here?
And Kluber's ground ball rate to lefties has definitely not been a shining point for him. 23.5% line drive rate with a 276 average allowed. So Edmund, Gorman, and Donovan could take advantage of that. And then guys like Tyler O'Neill, if you remember from last year, his barrel rate was stupid when he made contact. So we're looking to neutralize that K rate a little bit, and Kluber's K rate's down to 22%. So you get like a 8% gap between O'Neill and his K rate. So that gives him a chance to make good things happen. So I'm a little bit interested, but I'm less interested probably in the Cardinals than I am the Rays. But these are stacks at the bottom of the barrel that we really don't have to put too much equity into getting into. And the Cardinals, we have them at 4% own. So they're actually negative leverage on that 4%. But I think, at 4%, we're really splitting hairs here. So I'll probably be around the bottom there, 3-4%.
Yeah, it's a pretty neutral play. 4% ownership with a 3% chance to be in the top stack, 4.7% chance to be in the top value stack. So pretty neutral play. I think that makes sense to be kind of right around the field. Anything else that you want to say about the Cardinals at Rays game before we move on?
No.
All right. Well, then let's talk about the Athletics at the Braves. Jared Koenig is making his MLB debut for the A's. We got Ian Anderson on the mound for the Braves. The A's have a 3.6 run implied total. Apparently, Vegas doesn't think much of Koenig because the Braves have a 5.3 run implied total. What do you think of Jared Koenig? Is he somebody that you have any interest in his MLB debut? We don't know much about him. Obviously, he's, as I said, making his MLB debut. So all we have is minor league numbers. I looked at his minor league numbers just a little bit earlier, and they look pretty good, but that doesn't always translate to MLB. What are your thoughts on Koenig here?
Yeah, I mean, all we can do is go off what we got. And in the minors, he looked pretty doggone good. 28-year-old pitcher usually means he hasn't been living up to maybe what people hope for, but so far so good in the minors. We are working with a 2.21 ERA, 53 innings pitched so far, 61 K. So more than a strikeout per inning makes him a strikeout pitcher, and a whip at 102, and that's really pristine. And also what you like to see is his last couple of outings in the minors, 6 innings, 7 innings, 5, 8 innings. So I always tend to get overexcited about these type of guys coming into the bigs because, like you said, it never translates 1-to-1. And we were watching Kyle Bradish being, a stud in the minors, and he's still trying to find it and, find that consistency. Hunter Green, all those guys. It never translates 1-to-1, but when these guys come in early on, the field doesn't know what to do with them. They don't know who they are. And we usually get a decent price point. And that's exactly what's happened here, 5K. So I do think looking at his metrics, there is a chance for enough strikeout potential against a Braves lineup that still strikes out 24% of the time, if not more, that 10, 15 fantasy points if you like a 5K SP2 to really stack your bats here. I think there's at least a case for that. On FanDuel, I don't think I put 7-2 on him, but on DK, I could justify a couple of SP2s. And then, like you said, Vegas is not really thinking he's going to have a good debut in the bigs here. And, the Braves have been delivering. Last night, Ronald Acuna was really, really decently owned, and man, did he produce.
Yeah.
So I think I might where we got Koenig at 1.5% owned. I think I might throw 4 or 5, maybe even 6% on him just to kind of like reverse hedge the field here, because I do like the Braves, but I don't want to I don't actually at the Braves at 10%. I don't feel like I need to do anything ultra creative there either. So I think I'll match our top stack here. I have in my cruncher, I had Braves at 14%. So I'll just stick with that, be slightly above, but I also have some Koenig in the back end here and hope for 5K, 15 fantasy points.
Yeah, I kind of love these kind of spots where it's just kind of a chaos spot. We don't know what to expect of Koenig. So it's just, there's a wide range of outcomes here in terms of he could get completely shelled by the Braves, who do well against left-handed pitchers, as Terry pointed out in the chat, or he could, they've never seen him before. They don't know what to expect. He could just surprise them. Maybe they're having trouble with their eyes against this pitcher that they've never seen before. So I think that it's a both sides for me. This is a Scumdacker spot for me, I would say. Yeah, and as you said, I mean, coming in at 1.5% projected ownership for Jared Koenig with a 5.5% chance of being a top 2 pitcher on the board, 27.1% chance of being a top 2 value pitcher on the board. So that's a pretty massive number. It's the highest on the board of any pitcher here. So I can definitely see some merit to playing Jared Koenig here, just taking some shots. But then the Braves on the other side also look really good with a 9.9% projected ownership for the stack, but an 11.9% chance of being the top stack on the board. Yeah, sign me up for both sides of this game. What about the other side? Both sides of this matchup, I say. What about the other side of the game? Do you have interest in Ian Anderson in one of the better matchups you can have in MLB going up against the Athletics? How much interest do you have in Ian Anderson here?
Yeah, he's been generally underwhelming for me on the season every time I play him. But man, I just never not pitch against the Athletics. Man, this team is it's just not great. Never projects great. So I'm going to be responsible with my exposure to Anderson in back end of a 150. We have him at let's see, we have him at 28%. Honestly, probably egregiously overowned at that number versus 11% top 2 percentage, so negative 17% leverage. Oh man, so I hate to do this, but I think my process is I'm just going to fade that. 1.4 whip, a 3.8 expected ERA, 4.5 Sierra, and most alarming, a 19.5% K percentage. So I think, on these big slates, I usually don't have to worry about leverage because ownership gets pretty distributed, but that's a big number on Ian Anderson. So I think I'm going to sit that one out just because if he was more reasonably owned, I'd probably, have some shares here, but that's a big way to get different.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense here. He's just he's pretty negatively leveraged in the top pitchers tool. I think people just see that 6,400 going up against Oakland. They're like, yeah, he could pitch 6 innings and give up 0 earned runs, and that's all you really need, maybe at 6,400. But coming in at 28.8% projected ownership with an 11.4% chance of being a top 2 pitcher on the board, 22.5% chance of being a top 2 value pitcher on the board. So negative leverage across the board for Ian Anderson. So yeah, if you want to full fade him, I think that makes a lot of sense. I'm not sure what I'm going to do yet. I'm definitely not planning on matching the field just because he's clearly overowned, but maybe I'll have some shares. I have not made my lineups yet. We'll see later. What about the other side of it? We've got Oakland. You don't like Ian Anderson. What about Oakland stacks? Are you going to be full stacking Oakland at all, or maybe playing some one-offs?
Well, I didn't plan on it, but at a 30% owned pitcher, maybe some one-offs make a little bit more sense here. We're getting a 4% chance of being a top stack versus a 5% ownership. So it's kind of, we're still getting positive leverage on it, but I guess it makes sense to push back the field here. I don't know that I'd invest in a full stack here, but I would just target a couple of guys, maybe some 2-piecers, Chatty Pendergrass in the 5 spot, maybe in a decent RBI potential. But man, this lineup is abysmal.
It's a bad lineup, but I mean, they're coming in 5.8% ownership with a 16.6% chance of being the best point per dollar stack on the board. Only a 4% chance of being the top stack on the board overall, but gives me a little bit of interest. I mean, Ian Anderson's not a great pitcher. They're moving to Atlanta, which is an upgrade for them in terms of ballpark. I mean, there's some reason to go to Oakland, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if nothing else, we justify it by the math. The math being a 30% owned pitcher, so that means a lot less
some leverage there.
Yeah,
exactly right. All right, anything else you want to say about this game before we move on to your Yankees against my Twins?
Oh boy, I did not. Okay, no, I'm good.
I mean, I'm not going to be talking trash about the Yankees here. I mean, obviously the one of the top teams in baseball. Even though the Twins are leading the AL Central, they're not keeping pace with the Yankees. Is it your girlfriend is also a Twins fan, if I'm remembering right? Is that correct?
Yeah.
So you have to deal with the Yankees versus Twins all the time. All right, let's get into it. Yankees 4.8 run implied total, Twins 3.7. We got Nestor Cortez on the mound for the Yankees, Chris Archer for the Twins. How much interest do you have in Nestor Cortez here?
A little bit, but not, man. These games get funky like a monkey, man. These Twins, you know it, man. That 14-12 game, I'll never forget that game. Yesterday we saw it as well. But I think Nestor Cortez has really kind of carved out the respect to be a top pitcher in baseball. So anytime he's on a slate, I have interest. A 2.19 expected ERA, a 30% K rate, it all makes sense. So I have interest. I am going to be tapering that interest a little bit, just because I have enough respect for the Twins. They are above league average in WRC plus.
Thanks for saying that.
There is a Buxton, Correa, Polanco, Gio Urshela. That's a pretty tough 1-4. Would like to maybe see Gary Sanchez in the lineup just to give you a little power threat. Bottom half of that lineup does kind of bottom out here, but I'm kind of walking with the field here. The field's at 15%. I was actually at 18%, so I'm 4% above the field. So I have some interest, but I don't necessarily think he's the greatest play on the slate, but I do think he's pretty decent floor.
Yeah. He's also the most expensive play on the slate on DraftKings, so maybe a reason not to go there. But yeah, as you said, he's obviously he's got a reasonable floor, 14.7% projected ownership with a 16% chance of being a top 2 pitcher on the board. I think it makes a lot of sense to go to Nestor Cortez. Looks good in the top pitchers tool. What about, are you going to play any Twins against Nestor Cortez, or is this a stay away spot because he's too good?
Buxton, Correa, Polanco, they can all definitely make the player pool. Gio as well. I probably will have some twin stacks. But it's not a picking on Cortez here. What I will say is that the Yankees, without Chad Green, Loaiza, Aroldis Chapman, they have been letting pitchers go a little bit deeper. But if they can't go deep, they have to, bridge the gap here to like a Clay Holmes with some guys that are a little less than, dominant. So there is chance for one of these starting pitchers to kind of fold. Yesterday we saw Lucas Licky, Marinaccio, Wandy Peralta come into the mix here. But Miguel Castro, Manny Buelos, those type of guys can enter this game if, something bad happened to the start here. So I do have some interest in the Twins here. And I do think these, like I said, these games just get funky.
Yeah, I mean, Twins only projected for 2% ownership on the stack with a 3% chance of being the top stack on the board. So it makes some sense to get there. I'm probably not playing the Twins if I'm playing only 10 lineups, but if you're playing 50 lineups, you probably want at least a couple of shares of the Twins. So yeah, I think they make some sense to get there, even in a tough matchup going up against Cortez. What about the other side of it? Chris Archer, man, his numbers don't look great. The matchup doesn't look great. Any reason for should take some shots on Chris Archer here against the Yankees?
No, this is not what you want. 5.51 expected ERA, just an 18% K rate, and a very alarming 12.4% barrel rate. This is not the lineup you want to see with those numbers. So I'm gonna sit that one out, and that's numbers based, no bias.
Yeah. I mean, in my biased opinion, I'm also going to be sitting out Chris Archer going up against the Yankees. He has a little bit of positive leverage in the top pitchers tool, but not enough that I'm going to be forcing him in there. And I'm not going to be getting to any Chris Archer naturally. I'm pretty sure of that. So I think that's a pretty easy fade. What about the other side of it? How much interest do you have in your Yankees going up against Chris Archer with their 4.8 run implied total?
An insane amount of interest, like a lot.
Is this a biased take? You want to say it up front? Are you biased here?
Yeah, I mean, maybe, but like I said, my algorithm, there's no bias in those numbers, and this is some dirty stuff. Judge, Stanton, Donaldson, all projecting extremely well for me for power, and backing up Archer, I think is a beatable bullpen. I was at 14% Yankees. That's tied for the most in my little crunch here, and there's still some wiggle room to go up, but I don't need to go up if the field's not going up. And if I'm looking at it right, 8%, I mean, I'm happy with that. And it's still giving us some leverage, and I'm trying to grab even more leverage.
Yeah. I mean, 8% ownership with an 11.5% chance of being the top stack on the board. I think it makes a lot of sense to go to the Yankees here. I hate to do it, but I'm probably going to be right there with you. Put my biases aside. I think just the numbers support going to some Yankees stacks. So I'm going to be playing them. a good amount, I think. Anything else you want to say about Yankees at Twins before we move on and I tell people a little bit about Oddsshopper?
No, I'm big on the Yankees here. I would say they got Shielka's not as great defensively and offensively as Trevino. He's not bad, but Trevino's a little bit better. So maybe that tapers my expectations that much more. But yeah, for the most part, I'm pretty interested in this game, and more so on the Yankee side.
Yep, I think I'm in the same spot overall. I like the Yankees bats. I like some Nestor Cortez. Not a lot of interest in Chris Archer. Twins kind of contrarian, so you could play them, but probably not one of your first 10 lineups. All right, well, let's move on then, and I will tell you about Oddsshopper. Make your best bets in 30 seconds or less with Oddsshopper. With hundreds of bets featured daily, Oddsshopper gives you the edge you need betting player props and game lines across all sports. Sign up for free now via the link in the video description below to gain access to our proprietary data, which will help you make your best bets. With expected win percentages and ROIs included, Oddsshopper uses the same DFS projections we use here at Awesemo to filter out the best bets available. Oddsshopper also features a parlay builder with optimized parlays and an arbitrage tool that identifies risk-free, guaranteed profit bets that you can make across sports books. All right, Gundacker, let's move on. We got Phillies at Brewers up next. Aaron Nola on the mound for the Phillies, Adrian Hauser for the Brewers. The Phillies have a 4.1 run implied total, Brewers 3.9, kind of a pick'em game here. How much interest do you have? Let's start with Aaron Nola going up against the Brewers.
Yeah, quite a bit. I just think talent-wise, he's one of the best options on the board, 30% K rate. This Brewers lineup through and through, I think everyone in this confirmed lineup has maintained a 20+% K rate to righties since the beginning of last year. So a little 1 in 5 chance to match with that 30% overall K rate. Makes a lot of sense here. Aaron Nola at 9,400. Him and so I think he has a chance to be my second highest owned pitcher on the slate.
Okay.
So that's good. I hope he does well. We have him at 37% ownership. So I believe in him a lot more than Ian Anderson. So it is kind of not to be hypocritical here because I'm out on Anderson, but Anderson's metrics are not like Nola's metrics. So I just think he's a way better pitcher. I wish the ownership was a little softer here, but I think I will take this negative leverage. But I'm only at 30%, so I'm not at 37. Like
cutting the field a little bit, but still plenty of interest there. Yeah, I think that makes sense. I mean, I've talked about it on several shows, and I think you it sounds like you take kind of a similar approach where you get different more with bats than pitchers. You don't feel quite the need to follow the top pitchers tool quite as much as the top bats tool. That makes sense to me. I'll probably be in a similar boat to you where I'm probably going to be under the field just because I'll read off the top stacks tool coming in 37.3% ownership, and as Gundacker alluded to, 19.2% chance of being a top 2 pitcher on the board and only a 9.1% chance of being a top 2 value pitcher on the board. So a lot of reason not to like Aaron Nola in the top pitchers tool, but he's also just got some of the best numbers of any pitcher on this slate. He's got a 30% strikeout rate, 0.93 whip on the year. Just the underlying numbers. Aaron Nola is one of the top pitchers in baseball. So even against a kind of dangerous Brewers lineup, they also strike out a lot. So plenty of reason to go to Aaron Nola. And I don't think that it's hypocritical to go to Aaron Nola and not go to Ian Anderson. I think it makes a lot of sense to me. What about the others? Is this a scumdacker spot for you? You're going to be playing any Brewers against Aaron Nola?
Maybe some cherry picking here. I'm not going to full stack. One of the things that one like premonitions we could have here is if the weather takes out Bieber, that's a global swap for the field to go Bieber to Nola probably. So his ownership might actually even come in higher than it has, and that might be annoying. So I guess because of that potential, I guess it is fair to get some Brewer stack because Nola could then become the top owned pitcher on the slate. And there's more talent in the Brewers lineup than there is the Athletics lineup, right? So I feel better about that. So yeah, I guess with that in mind, I will get to some Brewers stacks here. Yelich in the leadoff spot, by the way. Is that right? Am I tripping? Holy cow.
That might make some sense. I mean, Yelich the lefty going up against
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, I think I will get to some Brewers here.
So some Yelich in particular, does that increase your interest in Yelich if he's leading off?
I mean, yeah. You get to maybe you sit on that first pitch fastball, or whatever, and I don't know. Sometimes managers do funky things like this to try and get something going here. So, more implied at bats for the home guy here, and like I said, it's just a much more talented team than the Athletics to play both sides of this, and then if it comes into where Nola ends up pushing 40-50% because Bieber gets yanked here, it only makes sense to have some hedge stacks versus the world at that ownership on this type of slate.
Yeah, it's a great leverage spot to play some Milwaukee bets. And in the top stacks, 3.2% projected ownership, 8.6% chance of being the best point per dollar stack on the board. So I think it does make some sense to get to Milwaukee, even in stacks. I mean, you can play them as one-offs, obviously, but I think I might even do some Milwaukee stacks because Nola does have a tendency to get blown up a few times per season at least. So I can see some merit to getting some Brewers stacks. On the other side of the game, we've got Adrian Hauser pitching for the Brewers. Are you going to be playing any Hauser against the Phillies?
I don't have any interest in him. I do, it's frustrating when guys like him, walk away with numbers that are better than the us nerd analytics put out. His ERA of 3.51 versus expected ERA of 4.53, the 1.4 WHIP. You can't keep doing this, god dang it.
Can't keep getting away with this.
It's ridiculous. So my initial plan was that I'm not that interested in him, and I just hope that he doesn't put up a must-have performance, but it is in the range of outcomes for 20 plus to happen for Adrian Hauser. Right now, I don't have him in my pool because the Phillies are starting to turn around without Joe Girardi, and I do like this Phillies lineup, and I'm in on the Philly stack. But I guess whenever we have these personal feelings here, we always look at the top pitchers tool here, and Adrian Hauser's not even getting 1% owned with a 5% chance to be in top stacks. So if we take emotion out of the mix, even if I don't go to match the 5% of being a top 2% pitcher and just go 2% back into the player pool, whatever, maybe we'll allow the robot to do the thinking for us there.
Right on. Yeah, makes sense to me. Looks okay in the top pitchers tool. Doesn't look like somebody you'd need to be forcing in there, but he's another one that, like, if Fantasy Cruncher gives me some Adrian Hauser, I'll take it. But he's probably not somebody that I would put into a hand-built lineup unless like I had exactly 7,700 left over. Then maybe I'll put in Adrian Hauser if it's not contrary to my stacks or anything. But yeah, probably not somebody I'm going out of my way to get to. What about the Phillies on the other side of it? How much interest do you have in the Phillies? Are you going to be full stacking or maybe playing some one-offs or secondary stacks?
Yeah, I have let's see, Phillies. I was at 8% versus, let's see, the field was, I think that the field was negative leverage on that spot when I last looked at them. Yeah, so
I just refreshed, but yeah.
I was about even with the field, and I'm eating a little bit of negative leverage, but I do like what the Phillies have been doing lately. Schwarber, Hoskins, Harper, Castellanos, Realmuto. I mean, that just makes you feel good when you put him in the mix here. The pushback here is Adrian Hauser. He gets away with this nonsense because he's such a big ground ball pitcher. 47% ground ball rate to righties, 47% ground ball rate to lefties. So I think that's what's getting him out of some jams here. But everything else says pick on him because he's going to collapse. That walk rate's high and that line drive rate's high. So I will have some Phillies here. I think 8% is okay on this slate. And if I have to come down later based on a later refresh, I will. But I'm just banking on that talent there. I think that's a really good talented team that it just makes sense to get to if they're less than 10% owned.
Yeah, I mean, I think that makes sense. I mean, sometimes you got to eat a little bit of negative leverage. You can get different in other ways. Maybe your secondary stack or your one-offs aren't quite as chalky. There's plenty of good lineups that you can make with the Phillies, even if they do have some negative leverage. So yeah, I definitely have some interest there too. Even in Milwaukee, I'll be playing some Phillies stacks as well. Anything else that you want to say about the Phillies at Brewers game before we move on?
No, this game has a roof.
That's nice.
That's nice.
No weather concerns in this one.
Nope.
All right. Up next, we've got the Dodgers at the White Sox. Tony Gonsolin on the mound for the Dodgers. Johnny Cueto for the White Sox. Let's start with Tony Gonsolin. The White Sox have a 3.7 run implied total. That's one of the lower on the board. Does that? Do you have any interest in Gonsolin here?
Yeah, Gonsolin is a model of consistency if we're just being results oriented here. 6 innings strong in 4 or 5 games, something like that. Just about 23, 25 fantasy points, 9,200, man. If you like 25 fantasy points, Gonsolin gets you 25. If you like 27, Gonsolin gets you 25. So I think he's worth grabbing. And last year I had a lot less confidence in his ability to go 5-6 innings here, but he's putting it together here. So I do want to have him in the player pool here. And I'm starting to learn that the White Sox are not who I thought they were, especially against righties.
Yeah.
81 WRC plus, 105 ISO. I'm off the sticker shock of pitching against them. I think Gonsolin's a pretty solid pitcher here with a 1-in-4 K rate. So I will have some Gonsolin. Comparative to the field, the field was at just 1%. Yeah, with that leverage, that's one of the best plays on the board with that type of number, 9% positive leverage. So yeah, I'm definitely in on Gonsolin.
Yeah, I'm with you. He is a pitcher that if I weren't getting enough Gonsolin, and I have not made my lineups yet, but if I weren't getting much, I would probably give him a boost to make sure that I do, because he's just got pretty decent. I mean, 25 fantasy points. I'll take that at 9,200. As you said, 1.8% projected ownership with 11.2% chance of being a top 2 pitcher, 5.3% chance of being a top point per dollar pitcher. So plenty of interest for me in Gonsolin as well. As you mentioned, the White Sox have not been great against righties this year. Do you think you're going to be getting to any White Sox stacks against Gonsolin?
Nah, just cherry picking a couple, Moncada fall here and there, Robert, guys like that. But I think I'm going to not get too involved in full-fledged onslaughts.
Okay. Makes sense to me. On the other side of the game, we've got Johnny Cueto going up against the Dodgers. Not a great spot for a pitcher. Are you going to be playing any Cueto today?
Man, click replay on my Adrian Hauser speech here. You talk about overperforming. This is rough. 2.92 ERA versus a 4.1 Sierra, 1.26 WHIP, an 18% K rate, swing and strike rate 7%. It's a pure contact guy. He is keeping a ball on the ground to righties at 50%, but this is a Dodgers team that is not like most teams. So I don't want to take a shot on Cueto more than likely, and then inherently with those type of numbers, I'm going to pick it on here with a road Dodgers team that gets those guaranteed ninth inning at bats no matter what.
Who's better, the Dodgers or the Yankees?
Oof. I'm gonna go Yankees, man. I think the Dodgers team might be better, but the Yankees pitching is just different.
All right, I'm just glad you had to think about that. I thought for sure it was going to be like a no-brainer for you, go Yankees right away. But you can put your biases aside. It sounds like it's impressive.
Sometimes.
All right. Well, on that note, how much interest do you have in the Dodgers bats going up against Johnny Cueto here? I mean, he's got to get blown up at some point, right? The Dodgers seem like a team that could do that. How much interest do you have there?
Yeah, so I had Dodgers listed at, I was sitting on 8%, and I think that was a little less in the field, but it was closer to our top stack number. And so I think that's fair. There is negative leverage versus the field, 11% by the field. I was sitting at 8%, and unless if some rain starts happening, I got to move things around. Maybe that number drives up or down, but I think 8% is where we're going to be. The main reason is just the guys you want, the Trey Turners, the Mookies. We're talking 6'1" to 5'8", and unless you're scraping the bottom of the barrel for pitchers, those type of guys are going to hard to get, especially if guys like Judge and Acuna and stuff like that have your eye. So a little tougher to full stack them without getting a little cute at pitcher.
Yeah, that is true. So that's one reason to get away, I guess. Even though you are playing against Johnny Cueto, they are going to be expensive and a little bit chalky, coming in at 11% projected ownership with an 8.3% chance of being the top stack, 2.5% chance of being the top point per dollar stack. So yeah, I mean, obviously you can always play the Dodgers, but those are the concerns, the ownership and the dollars. Anything else you want to say about the Dodgers White Sox game before we move on?
No, I was keeping an eye on weather. Sometimes you get random wind. Looks like it's like 60 degrees, so it's a little less hot than some spots, but for the most part, I'm just some Gonsolin, some Dodgers.
I don't know what's in the water these days, but we've got a lot of MILF talk in chat the past couple of days. Now we're getting into some GILF talk as well, maybe even. It's just talking about which actresses have aged the best. Who's your preference between Halle Berry and Julia Louis-Dreyfus currently? Who do you think has aged better?
I don't know who the second one is.
Halle Berry? No, who does?
I know
Julia Louis-Dreyfus was second. From Seinfeld.
Okay.
Elaine.
How old do you think I am? No,
you are too young. You are too young.
No, I'm not that young. I
all right.
Yeah.
All right, Gundacker doesn't even know who we're talking about, so we're just going to move right on. I'm going to tell you about the Osmo Best Bets Twitter handle. We have a free premium bet posted on our Osmo Best Bets Twitter handle right now. Go follow that account now and turn on notifications to be alerted when our daily free premium bet is posted. If you like these bets and want more, subscribe to our Best Bets package by clicking the link in the video description below. Best of luck if you are tailing. Let's move on to the Red Sox at the Angels. We've got Nathan Eovaldi on the mound for the Red Sox. Reed Detmers on the mound for the Angels. Let's start with Eovaldi. How much interest do you have in Eovaldi? He's had a pretty solid season so far, going up against the Angels, who strike out a fair amount, I believe. How much interest do you have in Eovaldi here?
So he's actually my favorite pitcher on the slate. Yeah, I think so the Angels lineup is the Angels are just in disarray all the way through and through. And what are they, 12 games now, 13 games, something like that, losing streak. Last night, Mike Trout got hurt. They also don't have Taylor Ward. So this could be a kick 'em while they're down spot for a sub 9K Eovaldi, who does have, strikeout rates worth having. And I'm still sitting on pins and needles for this confirmed Angels lineup. That Phil Nevin hopefully will start putting out more earlier than Joe Madden did. But man, is there some high K rates in this projected lineup? And I'm talking, 25+% to 30%. The aggregate's probably at 28% for all but two guys in the projected. So if you're going to give me no Ward, no Rendon, no Mike Trout, and I just got to get around Shohei Ohtani, man, I think this is a really strong spot for Eovaldi. So he's coming in as my highest owned pitcher.
All right, I like that. I like that take. That is a strong take. He's coming in a little bit high on, a little bit of negative leverage in the top pitchers tool at 35.3% projected ownership, with a 21.3% chance of being a top two pitcher, 14.5% chance of being a top two value pitcher. But as we've said, we like to get different, more with our bats than our pitchers. So yeah, if you like Eovaldi, as you said, we're still waiting on that Angels lineup, so we'll see how good of a spot it is for him. But I think it's gonna be a pretty good spot either way, so makes a lot of sense. What about the Angels? We don't have the lineup, but do you expect that you'll be interested in any Angels bats here?
Ohtani, Walsh, where they fall. But that's it. So probably no onslaughts here. We're just cherry picking the talent and let them fall where they fall.
Can I just get back? Have you never seen Seinfeld?
I mean, I know what Seinfeld is, but I never really watched it like that.
Just blowing my mind right now. Seinfeld, like one of the most watched sitcoms of all time. Probably still the number one. I don't know. It's got to be up there. And you're in New York, of all places, and not watching Seinfeld. All right, fair enough. I guess I don't watch a lot of shows from before my time either, so I guess I get it. For me, that's like, high school, college, that was like still airing, so I watched a lot of Seinfeld. All right, what about the other side of this game? We've got Reed Detmers on the mound for the Angels, going up against the Red Sox, who have a 4.7 run implied total. Let's start with Detmers, though. Do you have any interest in Detmers in this matchup?
No, it's another one of those contact guys. Yeah, he had that Tyler Gilbert. Remember him from the D-backs? Had that no, and then it just disappeared. I think that's Detmer's trajectory right now. Just not a K-rate guy that's worth taking chances on. If anything, I'm definitely picking on him with some Red Sox stack here. So no Detmers.
No Detmers. All right, you say you're picking on him with some Red Sox stack, though, so let's just move right into that. How much interest do you have in the Red Sox, and will you be playing them also as one-offs, or you're just going to try to full stack them?
I have 10% queued up for full onslaughts here. Just waiting on the confirmation lineup, but man, they got some really nice bats against a contact lefty. So I'm sitting at 10%. I think that's a happy little number to be at, especially since that's about their top stack percentage. And I'm, not that it's any much leverage worth noting, but I'm a little bit above the field projected wise.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to find leverage, and here you find positive leverage on a team that is getting some ownership. So they're coming in at 8% projected ownership with a 9.5% chance of being the top stack on the board. So I think that's a good spot to be in, just a little bit above the field, a little bit above that top stack odds. I'm probably going to try to match you, try and get above the field on the Red Sox here as well. What about I guess we've talked about every side of this game. Anything else you want to say about this game before we move on?
No, just looking for no Trout in the lineup, and then we had a similar stretch last year. I don't know if you remember when all these guys got injured, and I was pitching against Angels just about every day, and this is a spot where I think we get a a decent above average pitcher to maybe kick them all the way down even more. So just look
it.
for that lineup.
Yeah, makes sense to me. The next game, we're not going to see a lot of scoring. At least it's not projected to have a ton of scoring in it. We've got the Mets at the Padres. The Mets have a 3.5 run implied total. The Padres at 3.6. Chris Bassett on the mound for the Mets. Sean Manaea on the mound for the Pods. Let's start with Bassett. Any interest here in a matchup with the Padres?
Yeah, Bassett and Manaea, I think I'm gonna have shares of both. I'm kind of in agreement with the run totals here. Pretty low run totals. Whether there's nothing to juice anything up. I think Bassett's a pretty solid pitcher, and 8,200 I think is a really good price. I feel like we've talked about paying up to 9-10K for him earlier this season, so I do think we're getting a decent number here for a guy that's going to give you a shot at 110 pitches, maybe erase some mistakes here, more likely going to give you 6 innings. So in this spot, you really just got to get around Machado more often than not. And the bottom half of the lineup might bail you out with some strikeouts here. So I'm in on Bassett for sure. And the field is at 13%. That's about fair with this top stack. So I had him capped at 16. So I'm happy with all that.
Yeah, it makes sense to me. Very, very neutral play on this slate. He's obviously got some upside, but yeah, 13.5% projected ownership, 13% chance of being a top 2 pitcher on the board, 11.2% chance of being a top 2 value pitcher on the board. So very neutral play. I definitely have some interest in Chris Bassett here. And you said you also have some interest in Sean Manaea. We have some negative leverage there, 31.5% projected ownership with a 20.9% chance of being a top 2 pitcher on the board, 12.6% chance of being a top 2 value pitcher on the board. How much interest in Manaea? Do you think you're going to be trying to match the field there, or what's your level there?
No, I had him capped at 18%. I was thinking about pushing that to 20, but I might just keep it down because of negative leverage. It's like we saw with Blake Snell the other night. Like I think the Mets are can be a little sneakier if the lineup comes out right against lefties. But what you got to watch is Pete Alonso, because I think he's injured, and if he doesn't play, the lineup does take a step backwards. But you can still justify guys like Canna, Lindor, Eduardo Escobar. But I think Pete Alonso is a huge absence. And besides that, though, Alonso does strike out, but the rest of this lineup without Alonso projected wise, just JD Davis and Thomas Nido have a plus 20% K rate in the last 2 years against lefties. So it might actually be a negative for strikeout potential if you take him out. So maybe I can justify walking backwards with those numbers, and he's close enough to Eovaldi's price point. And this is one of those later games in the night. And I know we don't really discuss late swapping in MLB like we probably should, like how we do it in basketball. But with that price being so close to Eovaldi, if I need some crazier production out of my pitcher, I might put 20% on Manaea, maybe go a little bit higher, and then later on, if I find some Manaea lineups might need a little bit more help and a little less pop, I got more faith in Eovaldi, so I might just global swapped in. But I think 20 is a happy spot.
I like that. I like that line of thinking. We've still got to talk about the stacks in this game, and then we've got the Rockies and Giants. But before we get there, I just want to point out that the Cubs Baltimore game has been delayed. Should we touch on that for just a second? See if we want to adjust anything there. Does this affect whether you want to be playing the pitchers in this game, Stroman or Lyles?
Well, yeah, obviously it wouldn't take much for me to be out on either of those pitchers, but from what I understand, that area is in a flood watch, and a late start just might make things weird. I don't know how good their drainage and all that. So I know they're probably better than anywhere else, but I think that's a bad sign here because it's just going to make it more, likely more wet here. So I think I might have to bail on that. And that's, I was more invested in the stacks here. So that'll shake things up.
Yeah, it's tough. So Loco saying he says there's a 25 to 30% chance of postponement, which drives down my interest some. It's hard because I did want to play these stacks a little bit. They both look okay. But man, if there's a 25 to 30% chance of postponement, they're not such great spots that I feel like you really need to be forcing them in there. So I haven't decided yet, but I think it makes some sense to avoid that game. If you were inclined to avoid it anyway, I would just totally exit out completely. I think it's a reasonable approach. There is some positive leverage on the Baltimore side, and the Cubs look okay going against Jordan Lyles too. So it's hard to recommend completely fading it, but I think that's at least an approach you need to be considering with the 25 to 30% chance of postponement. All right, so we talked about both Bassett and Manaea. I kind of skipped over the Padres stack there, but let's talk about your level of interest. Let's start with the Padres. Are you going to be playing any Padres stacks against Chris Bassett, or maybe getting some one-offs?
Yeah, I just one-off territory. Machado's the main guy for me. Bassett's weakness, I guess, this year has been power to lefties. He's got a 2+ homer per nine to lefties with a 42% fly ball rate here. So maybe we can chip in a chair a bat like Jay Cronenworth if he gets a positive spot in that lineup. But for the most part, I'm not going to be onslaught stacking.
It looks like I'm seeing in chat that we did actually get that Angels lineup, and that Trout is not in it. I want to confirm that that's the case.
Yeah,
I've got no Trout today. So
and
some Evaldi interest there. You already had some interest in Evaldi. I take it that is going to up your interest a little bit. Seeing the lineup that's out, we got Ohtani, Adele, Walsh, Duffy, Lagares, Marsh, Mayfield, Suzuki, and Wade.
If you had a time machine and could go 3 weeks ago, right? That Angels team had so much hope, and then, here we are. And to follow up on that, the Mets lineup came out, and there is no Pete Alonso.
Oh yeah, sure enough. All right. Does that increase your interest in Manaea at all?
Yeah, it seems like a strong pitcher's duel chance here, and maybe a no-run first inning opportunity.
Making a bet. All right, that makes sense to me. All right, so then with no Pete Alonso, do you have any interest in playing a stack from this Mets lineup, or maybe some one-offs?
Yeah, definitely some one-offs. That would be Frankie Lindor, maybe some Eduardo Escobar. But man, this is a team that doesn't project for a lot of power against lefties outside of those couple names here. So we're just gonna be I'm just gonna be cherry picking this game, and yeah, I'm not gonna full stack. Although if we lose this Cubs and Orioles, I might have to start getting the spots I didn't expect to get.
True, that's going to change our math a little bit here. All right, anything else that you want to say on this Mets at Padres game before we move on to the final game of the night?
Nope.
All right, well, we've got the Rockies at the Giants. The Rockies with a 3.6 run implied total, Giants at 5 run implied total. I'm seeing a chat. Colin Richards says wind is blowing out almost 20 miles per hour in San Francisco. I have not fact checked that yet, but that kind of makes things interesting. We've got
from what I understand, the way that arenas or stadiums built, it's built to like neutralize that. Okay. But I don't know the science behind it, but I don't think that's a huge actual impact.
It should be reflected in the line either way. That the weather should be reflected in the Vegas line, which is then reflected in the Osmo projections and the tools. So we should be accounting for all that. But here we've got Antonio Senzatella on the mound for the Rockies, Alex Wood on the mound for the Giants. How much interest, if any, do you have in Senzatella? He's at least getting out of Coors Field here. Does that increase your interest at all in Senzatella?
Nah, at 9% K rate, I'll live without that. No, none.
We can avoid that. All right. What about the Giants? So they got a 5 run implied total here. How much interest do you have in the Giants going up against Senzatella?
Yeah. So, a guy in chat says can't neutralize that much. 9 run total speaks to that. I think that 9 run total is because of Senzatella, not because of the wind. Senzatella is just really bad as a pitcher. Just a pure contact guy. So anytime you're going to put a team like the Giants against Senzatella backed up by that bullpen, there's a good chance that they're going to score some runs here. So I do have a lot of interest in Giants. The Giants, I had them listed at 8%, but I think I'm going to have to raise that. Now I'm still waiting on that lineup, or I think it did come out without, I think it did come out. I think it had Darren Ruff. So I have to adjust to that. And I think I'll have to start shifting some Cubs and Orioles ownership. And I think just makes sense to get to some Giants here.
All right. Yeah, makes sense to me. We didn't touch on that the Rangers Guardians has also been delayed due to rain.
Oof. Yeah, that was also a tough start. I think what I read earlier was if it delayed, that's more alarming than them starting.
Yep. That is also what I read earlier. So are you gonna X that game out too?
Yeah, this has been such a week for weather, man.
It has been. Yeah, it's kind of crappy. All right, so we have interest in San Francisco bats, no interest in Antonio Senzatella. What about the other side of it? Do you have interest in Alex Wood going up against the Rockies here?
Yeah, a little bit actually. Yeah, and now we might I might have some Bieber ownership to distribute here in 8,600 on wood. I'm looking for 16 to 20 fantasy points. I think this Rockies lineup is, a little scrappier against lefty when it comes to strikeouts, but I'm just looking to fill a spot here, get some numbers. So I'm in on them, but it's really just I don't think it's a terrible play, and I need to fill some ownership here. So I'm going to get to him, but like in 20 or less, 50 or less, or even single entry, I don't think I would land on him. But 8% ownership by the field, 12% top stack. All this is subject to change, obviously, but as it stands, there's still some positive leverage to be had. So it makes sense to have him in the pool.
Yeah, and he's a good enough pitcher that I definitely have some interest here. Facing the Rockies outside of core is always a good spot. So yeah, sign me up for a little bit of Alex Wood as well. What about the other side of it? Final spot of the night. Any interest in the Rockies going up against Alex Wood?
Yeah, like I said, this it's a scrappy K lineup. I know, we deal with their overall numbers being a little bit influenced by their home field here, but we know CJ Cron can smack lefties. Brendan Rodgers has a 961 OPS against lefties since the beginning of last year, and just generally we're getting a cheaper opportunity at getting to them. So I actually wasn't that enthralled earlier, but I think the Rockies are going to be a perfect next man up stack for me now, with some of these other games possibly be coming off the board. And I think we can, Connor Joe, Blackman, Cron, Grichuk in the bottom of the orders. I think there's some justifiable clicks here. So yeah, I'll have some Rockies.
All right. Makes sense to me. All right. Well, that'll do it with that. That is every game on the slate. Gundacker, anything else that you want to say before we hand it off?
No, I got to go panic and scrap and change a whole lot.
Me too. All right. Well, on your way out of here, please remember to give us a like and subscribe so you can keep up with all of our shows, DFS offers, giveaways, and much more. Once you subscribe, hit that notification button to get alerts when our shows go live. We've got NBA Deeper Dive and Live Before Lock up next, followed by later in the night, we've got a watch along with Greg and Eric. So stick around for some NBA. Thanks for watching and good luck tonight.